This is a Not Just A Guy production. Let me talk at ya. Welcome back to Not Just A Guy, NJAG. I'm your host, Not Just A Guy, the guy, Garrett Briones, the show about struggling storytellers. And this is a first. This is the first episode with a guest. And when I think long and hard about who I wanted as my inaugural guest, I thought of no one better than the Ibushi to my Omega, the Carnage to my Venom, founding member of the Briones Club, a.k.a. Briones Club Gold, a.k.a. the Pew Pew Crew, a.k.a. Top Shelf Marauders, because Briones Club is for Lara, and one half of CU, a.k.a. Criminally Underrated, my best friend, Roberto Lara.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, that's history right there. That's the first thing anyone else has ever said on this show. I'm very happy to have you. Thank you for doing this.
Yeah.
Are we both just gonna keep ripping off, formerly known as Eli Drake, currently LA Knight?
Yeah.
Okay. No. So you had something else to add?
No.
You're not happy to be here?
I'm happy to be here, dude.
You're an avid listener, number one fan, right next to Andrew Bellish, other lovely boy. I love him. Hopefully he's listening to this in his Jeep.
Yeah, I'm really happy to be here. Love the podcast. Anything you do, I'm always supporting it.
Okay. Calm down. Okay, so I'm currently back home, back in the town that made me, the town that made us, Porterville, California. I needed a little reset. Life has been extra tough recently, and so I thought this was a way to further, bring people in, show what I'm about, and also spotlight one of my best friends who, in only 24 years on this planet, you've already seen and done so much. Can you tell a little bit? Let's regale us with what you've been doing since you've been a high school graduate. Who is Roberto Lara?
All right, so you put me on blast.
Yeah, here, you take the mic. Here we go. Cut a promo.
You guys can't see, but we're recording this on a mic, and
Got to point it right at your lips. Kid.
I had to, yeah. It's called a promo.
Yeah.
You gotta learn how to do one.
It's a promo class.
We're doing this podcast on a little mic. So we're passing it back and forth, and it feels kind of sacred to hold the mic.
Yeah.
So to take the mic from the guy.
This is the first episode with that mic.
Man, I'm holding the mic.
Yeah.
Yeah, since high school, just living life. I was working 3 jobs at the time at Domino's, Route 21, and I just got brought onto Applebee's, where I just realized, like, dude, I have no license, no car. My mom was driving me everywhere. I just was like, I can't do this anymore. There has to be something better out there. And I ended up just going to the Army, what every smart guy does. Yeah, I went to the Army. I did a 2-year contract thinking, we'll see how I like it. I ended up loving it. I originally joined as a paralegal. I went up to, like, the testing site where they test and stuff, and they were like, oh, if you've smoked weed or done any drugs, you need to let us all know right now. Like, right now, this is your last chance. If you get caught, you're going to jail. And I'm there like, oh, man, well, I haven't smoked weed. At the time, I didn't smoke any weed. I didn't drink anything like that. And then I was around my friends that were smoking, like, the weekend before, and I was like, dude, what if I breathed it in? What if I took a deep breath or something? So I got paranoid, and I was like, yeah, I might have some in my system. And they were just like, well, what do you mean might? And I told them what happened, So they ended up just cutting their losses. Like, oh, they took away my secret security clearance. They took away, like, the things that I needed for that job. And then I ended up they gave me that choice. Do you want to be a mechanic, a fueler, or a cook? And I was like, oh, I love cooking.
Yeah.
I love cooking. Yeah, so I ended up being a cook in the Army for 2 years. I ended up loving it. Stationed in Savannah, Georgia. Kind of to just give you the rundown. 2 years in Savannah, loved it. Ended up re-enlisting for 3 years. I chose to do a year and a half to stay in Savannah, and my other year and a half to finish in Korea. And then, just like what you're going through, like I was struggling. Like, I wanted to tell a story. I wanted to live my life. I wanted to do what's best for me, and I just needed a reset. I needed to come home, be with my friends, be with my family, and now, like, having been home and out the military, I have a whole new life open up to me and a whole different. I wanted to finish the story I was telling, and I just opened a whole new book, just put it down. Yeah, so I don't know.
Well, yeah, thank you for sharing that. Because I think a big thing is, this show is obviously it's about struggling storytellers, and yes, because I'm a filmmaker, that it's very adjacent to that industry. But I think something on a broader level is that we all are storytellers. Whether it's you're telling your buddy a story at the bar, or you're driving somewhere with your parent and they're telling you about, oh, well, I drove this same road 20 years ago when I was, your age, and things like that. And that's why I wanted to have you on, was because we're both people, we're the same age, and we've known each other since kindergarten, and we're both in that point where you, at least for me, I don't want to speak for you, where you kind of think that you're supposed to have everything already figured out. Everybody thinks that by the end of your 20s, you should have things like already figured out and already be on your life path. For myself, it's been over 2 years since I graduated from college, and I don't have like a ton to show for that film wise. But I always have to remind myself that, it's not a sprint, it's a marathon. And so I wanted to ask you, as someone who was in the armed forces, who has now, you said you've been to Savannah, you've been to Korea, and now you're back here. What is it that you want to build towards, whether that's profession-wise or even life-wise, like where you just want to be? What kind of steps are you taking to do that? Because, like, I've given details on how, like, I plan to do this audio drama, and I plan to save up for shorts and hopefully get into festivals, things like that. Where do you want to go, and how do you see yourself getting to that point?
Well, before I answer the question, I kind of just want to backtrack. Like, when you say we're best friends, I think people really need to understand we are best friends since kindergarten. We've been best friends, literally. We had the same kindergarten teacher. First grade had different teachers. Second grade, did you have Rogers?
Yeah.
We had the same teacher. Third grade different, fourth grade same, fifth grade different, sixth grade, so on, so on. And there was a point in time where we weren't friends anymore, where we just stopped talking, and then a point in time when you just walked up to me, do you want to be friends again? And I would never, ever forget that, probably till the day I die, where this guy just came up to me, do you want to be best friends again? And I said, yeah. Then, and then it's history, dude. Yeah, so just looking in, it's very different for me to an extent, where I was getting out of the Army, and I wanted to be one of those guys. I was in the military, and I was like, oh, I was going to school at the same time, I was working at other jobs at the same time, and I did those things, but I didn't finish. I tend to do a lot of things, and I tend to never finish, and that's probably one of my biggest gripes I have with myself, is that I not that I'm a quitter, just that I get sidetracked. I get on to the next thing. Getting out of the Army really opened my eyes. I went to college for a semester, having been back, and I was just kind of like in a funk, not depressed, but just kind of like, dude, everybody has the degree. Everybody's having kids. Everybody's married. Everybody's, probably the same way you feel, where, you're doing your film thing, and it's like, everyone's graduated and they're working in their industries and stuff, but you're in an industry where you can't just walk in. And even the jobs that you have had is like more than what others in your industry could say. For me, it's like I joined the Army straight out of high school, and people are like, oh, well, they teach you things that you can still transfer. And to an extent it's true, but I came out feeling like a loser, like I'm a bum, like I don't know anything, I'm dumb, I'm lame, like, just beating myself up. And then I had some of my college classmates actually telling me, like, dude, you actually told me one time as well, like, you've done things other people have never done. You've traveled the world. You've met people from other ethnicities, nationalities, all over, the world, literally. I got to see countries other people would never see. I've been to Korea. My units have been to Greece, Poland, Spain, all these other places. So it's pretty cool. Like, I never look at it that way. I never look at myself on the inside, I always see like the outside perspective, and they really like have highlighted that I did learn leadership skills, attributes. Like I've learned something most people won't have, and it's just to never give up.
Yeah.
You know, but I don't know what I want from life right now. I'm opening a new Adidas store. We don't have an Adidas where we live. They're opening the first, like, a clearance store. So we're going to be getting shipment from all over California. Every Adidas in California will be shipping their stuff here, and we'll be selling it for a fraction of whatever the cost is, you know. That's my main priority right now. I bartend on the side. I train MMA every single day, jiu-jitsu, Muay Thai, boxing, wrestling. 3 hours a day every day. So I don't know what I want. I kind of just want to see where life takes me, dude. Just, you know, collect a check for now. Work hard right now, you know. Work hard, collect a check, and just do things I enjoy. Hanging out with you, hanging out with our other friends, going out. That's the stuff I enjoy, just being home. I kind of have to see where life's taking me. I don't know yet.
So you touched on something in there that, you know, the idea of, you know, how you sort of felt like when you came back that you were sort of in some ways kind of like left behind, or, you know, or behind other people in life. And that's something, you know, I've talked a little bit about my college life, but, you know, in what you were saying, like, you were doing something that was super worthwhile, and, you know, yes, you weren't going to school at the same time, but that's almost like the complete opposite of what I was doing, where when I was in college, I was just solely focused on that. And to be honest, I was using school as an excuse, like, when I really look back on it. And I'm trying to be better about not looking back on things and thinking about, like, oh, I could have done it differently, because obviously I made my choices and I need to stick by them. I don't need to think about the what ifs. But you know, but to that point, I didn't get a job, and my roommate, he got a job, and that helped him, and he built up experience, and he was a little bit better at getting future jobs and future opportunities than I was, because I didn't have those. I didn't get my first actual official job until, and, you know, even you talked about the 3 jobs that you had. You know, I got free Domino's, or at least reduced price Domino's, for, like, the longest time. Even in high school, the closest I had to a job was, like, on the weekends, one day every, like, couple weeks, I would go and mow someone's lawn, you know, get sunburned. I didn't have my first official job till I was 21, and during the pandemic. That was when I got my first actual official job. So I think something that people always need to think about is, like, perspective. Is that just because you did something differently than someone, and yes, maybe that person is, I can't tell you how many times I go on Instagram and I see people, like, buying my first house, and I'm, like, struggling. You know, I didn't make a dime this summer, and, you know, struggling to even pay for the 1 bedroom I'm in, you know, that I'm sharing in someone's house. And I think another thing is to speak more on our friendship. It's like you said, it's not just as simple as, like, oh, we've known each other since kindergarten. There's a lot of people I've known since kindergarten, but that grounding presence, you know, it's like, I think neither you nor I ever got too big for our britches. I will say, I think both of us are men who think very highly of ourselves, while also thinking we're the dirt worst. Yeah. But I think having each other, we've always been grounded. Especially, I think the thing that because we were friends, and then we, like, just drifted apart. And then in 4th grade, we came back because I wanted to learn more about Yu-Gi-Oh! So we reignited our friendship. Then we went separate again. Middle school, we started getting back there. And then I think in high school, the biggest thing that brought us together, and it's one of the biggest parts of both of our lives, because we started it together. We didn't drink the Kool-Aid when everybody else was. We waited a full year to drink that Kool-Aid, which was choir. And I mentioned many times choir being, I've sprinkled in, I mention whenever I can that I was choir president to people, just because I think it doesn't make me sound cool, but it's something. But I wanted to ask you, because I always think about choir, and that's another way. We were telling stories with our voices, with that staccato,
with our expressionless faces on that stage.
Yeah, you know, make sure, don't breathe out, breathe in.
Smile.
I wish there was video to see that. We love you, Mr. Sutherland. That was our choir teacher. But I wanted to ask, for me, choir was a big, I think I'm not the person I am today, and I'll elaborate on that in a second, without choir. Was that an experience? Because obviously, you know, you had you had athletics, you had your wrestling, Mr. Big Wrestling Boy in his jacket, indoctrinating one of our friends into joining it. I almost joined it, and then I immediately retired 0-0 because I got dropped on my back by my friend in practice, and I felt my spine tingle, and I said, you know what, I'm retired, I'm done. But I want to ask you, was that, because that was something where you were a storyteller, was that an experience that changed you in any ways? Because as I said, and I'll elaborate later on how it changed me, but what was that experience like for you?
I think choir in itself was very, eye-opening for me. Was one, because I got other people to join that I never thought would have joined. I joined because you joined. You joined because I joined. My cousin Louis joined, and he's in high school was one of the most quiet people ever. Yeah. Never spoke. Freshman, sophomore year, never spoke a word to anybody. Unless they're his friends. But I like to think more towards junior, senior year, he did start to come out of his shell. He sang it. I've heard him sing here and there, but to actually get on a stage and sing in front of everyone, I never thought I'd see that in my life from him. I sing all the time. I don't care if I'm good, bad, or whatever. I love music, but I was never like, oh, I want to be in choir, or oh, I'm gonna be in theater.
Be a nerd.
Yeah, I don't want to be a geek, But I don't know. I joined and it did help me out. I feel like it made me a better person. I feel that before maybe, choir has that stereotype of,
it's Glee.
Oh, yeah, like Glee, the TV show, But, actually. But,
what's drama?
Yeah, dude, I loved it. I loved choir. I loved singing. I wasn't the best, but Mr. Sutherland did a great job of making me feel like the best, And I feel like he did that with everyone, where he wouldn't, maybe that note's a little sharp. I don't know if that's in your range, but guiding you through it. And I learned a lot from him personally. And just choir in general was a great experience, confidence-wise, commitment-wise. I feel like choir was one of those things that we had to be at practices from right after school until 8 o'clock at night. There's no other club, no other sport, no other anything that was demanding as much time that choir was, which is weird to think about and look back at. But just the trips we had, the connections we made, the Heartland trips. I would tell anybody right now that the trips going to Heartland throughout high school should be mandatory. Just that. For those who don't know, we would go on a field trip in choir to this Christian camp called Heartland. Maybe in this auditorium that seated about 200 people. We had about 100 people and students, and our teacher would make us do these things called affirmations, where one person would stand up. So I would stand up, and anybody who had anything nice to say about that person standing up would be allowed to either stand up or raise their hand and get called on or whatever. And in high school, that was so eye-opening, where just for example, say my friend Andres stood up, and it's something I would never say to him to his face. Obviously you're my friend and I care about you and stuff, but he stood up and, does anyone have anything to say about Andres? And I stand up and I'm like, dude, you're honestly a brother to me. I see how you support your family on your own, and no one ever asks you if you're ever okay or in a bad mood. You always have a smile on your face. You're never a negative person. You give your shirt off your back to anybody. Something like that, where we're just breaking down, crying, giving each other praise. But in high school, to do that in front of everyone, regardless of status quo, regardless of anything, being open, created bonds that no one else in our school had. And that you can't fake, you can't, and I still talk to him to this day. Yeah. So for choir, not the biggest part of my life or the biggest memories, but will always for sure have a special spot for me.
Yeah, I think when I think back on high school, if it wasn't for choir, I think I would have had a good time. I would still have a lot of the same friends, but I wouldn't have, like you said, the tightening of those bonds. And anybody that has a chance, if you have a choir or any kind of group that's anywhere, that has anything similar to Heartland, I say you jump at it, unless it's a bad group, then don't. For me, what choir it unlocked was, the way I was raised, I guess. It's I was raised by my parents, and both of them are, not to put a stamp on it, but, they were raised in like 60s, 60s, 70s. For example, my dad isn't the most open with emotions, and there's nothing wrong with that. That's just people are built certain ways.
Or how they are.
Yeah, exactly. And I think for a long time, yes, I was expressive, but I don't think I told any of my friends I loved them until I joined choir. Like, one of my friends kept telling me, I'll just say his name's Dylan Berkey. He kept telling me he loved me all the time, and I was always like, thanks, man. And then I was like, why am I not saying that to people? And then you go on these, like you said, these Heartland trips. I don't think I've ever experienced such, like, catharsis. Like, you think, like, because people, I would say more often than not, it was like 80 to 85% of people were bawling. And you sit there and you think, oh, well, when my friends get to me, they're gonna bust my balls in front of everybody. They'll say, they'll end it with something semi-sweet, and then you're standing there and you're just, I think we take for granted how
many people raised their hand to speak about you was appalling to me. Not speaking about you, but just like, who would like to say something nice about this individual? The amount of people where obviously you're gonna have your ones and twos, your friends, but the people that maybe you said one thing to in high school will raise their hand and tell that one thing you said, and you don't know the impact that has on them,
Yeah.
And with this podcast, someone could be listening, and I've heard little bits and pieces because I listen to every episode.
All three of them.
All three of them. But I've heard some stuff where I'm just like, huh.
I agree with you. Like, seeing seeing when you expect, like, oh, yeah, Dylan, Lara, and Sven are going to raise their hands because those are my guys, or my friend Damien. And then, like, two people you didn't expect put their hands up. Someone that we've known since kindergarten puts their hand up. Things like that. And to say, and also, like, I will say that we're only supposed to be at Heart. When back in our day, you only went for one night. We were the first people that inadvertently, accidentally, were there for 2 nights. I will say that night, we spent the night. We were there, and then we were supposed to go home on the bus late at night. And it's the most windy, thin road you've ever seen in your entire life. And our bus, the bus in front of us, the bus behind us gets stuck. And I will always remember one of the memories burnt into my mind that when I talk about our friendship was we were sitting there. Mr. Sutherland comes on and explains to us why we stopped randomly. And, told us that the other bus got stuck, that it's not going to be able to get out tonight. Without saying a single word, Lara and I turn and look at each other. It's like a scene out of a movie. We turn, we look at each other, we just sort of nod, and we immediately stand up. And we were 2 of the first people to give up their seats so that people that needed to get home, people with different ailments, different, maybe weren't comfortable having to stay, were a little freaked out by what happened. And we ended up being like the leaders that led the whole, group back, the group of people that wanted to be heroes. We led them back, and I remember that's one of the defining moments of our friendship, especially when it comes to choir. Something I've been dying to ask you, and I wanted to ask you on the pod, because you can be as real and as raw as you want. Monday Night Raw. Oh, yeah. You are the reason why I am such a fan. I have fallen in love with the art of professional wrestling. You have been a lifelong fan ever since those early days. I remember you being into it. I was like, I don't know about that. I know John Cena. I know The Rock. I know those guys are all right, I guess. And then in 2016, well, funny enough, connected to choir, I sang John Cena's theme at our first Heartland trip. I sang it with my friend Damien. That got me the choir presidency. And then as I was researching, I was finding myself watching more and more clips. It's like, hey, it's pretty entertaining. Okay. And so now, flash forward to now, I'm the biggest wrestling fan. I watch about 4 to 5 hours a week. I think I annoy you with how much I like it. Even up top, there's pro wrestling, and this entire podcast is inspired by pro wrestling as well. The whole The Guy moniker is very wrestling inspired. We have talked for years about you going to train, you taking on a stage name. I want to ask you, and I'm not asking this in any sort of denigrating way or anything. Do you think that is something that you will do? Do you fully see yourself doing that? Is that something, do you see, you spoke about MMA. Do you see yourself maybe going down to, entering into different MMA tournaments? Or when it comes to the world of professional wrestling, sports entertainment, and combat sports, Do you see yourself having a future in that, given how much you love that art, that medium, that sport?
It's really cool. It's really, really cool that you asked that, just because I want to say it was your first episode. You talked about feeling some type of... Oh, no. You talked about Jack Kirby, that he should have...
He didn't want art.
Yeah.
He told the kid to not do it because he didn't want comics to break
He said comics would break his heart, yeah. So it's just funny that you mentioned that, because that was one of those things that, like I said, I listened to your podcast, and that was one of those things that made me go, huh. Like, I would love to have a future in MMA, but that's so different. Those guys, the professionals, the Justin Gaethjes, Conor McGregor, George St. Pierre, you know, I'm not thinking I want to be one of the GOATs, one of the great, you know. I would love to, but those guys are just built different, dude. And that's a term that's overused nowadays, but they're just, you can't teach drive and ambition. You can't teach dedication. You can't teach just heart. Not that I don't have any of that, but those guys, I look at them training, I look at them fighting, and I'm just like, I got kicked in the ribs the other day and had to go to the ER. Like, I broke my ribs, like, you know? And pro wrestling. Oh, man, dude, my first love, my first everything, dude, my first memory, my first live event. Like, people go to concerts, people go to, you know, performances, plays. I went to Monday Night Raw. Like, it's funny that you ask. Just because one of my best friends from the Army, his name's Alex Perez. I think I've told you about him a little bit. He also does podcasts. He has like a YouTube channel. He's very much a foodie. He likes to eat. He likes to review food. That's what his, you know, shtick is. And he's actually training right now as we speak at the... I got out of the Army in December, and I've been living in Porterville in California, you know, ever since December, and we're now in August. This guy got out in like June or July, and he's from Long Beach, lives in Long Beach, and he's already training at that Centino Brothers Wrestling Academy. Oh, wow. And for people who don't know that, that's a very well-known wrestling school in Southern California, and it is they produce people like Brody King. You know, they've produced a lot of the famous refs, they produce a lot of people who work behind the scenes, not really wrestlers, but, you know, producers and road agents and stuff like that, trainers, the people who don't get enough love, you know. But he's training right now, and he always tells me, he's like, hey, man, I ran the ropes today. That shit's no joke. Or I took a bump today, and my back hurts. Dude, look at this bruise. Like, he's loving it. And, you know, props to him. Good for him. But I've always just been the type of, like, I can't live. I need to make my own money, you know? I don't want to live at my mom's house. I don't want to pitch in and help with bills, you know? I could. I could live a comfortable life, but I would rather live a struggling life where I purchase my own home and I'm struggling with the mortgage, you know, I'm paying my bills and being like, wow, I'm really on my own. I'm doing it. Like, this is adulting, you know? So to just uproot and leave to bet on myself is something I've considered a million times, but is just hard. Like, where would I live in the greater Los Angeles area? You know, where would I'm going to be training wrestling, not getting paid. You know, I still have to work, but my body's going to hurt. I have to be in the best shape of my life, you know. I can't just show up. I feel like a lot of people go to wrestling school or MMA training thinking, like, I'll get in shape. You know, it'll help me. But you don't want to show up and be turned into a star. You want to show up as a star. You want them to look at you like, that's the guy. That's my next. Hey, you know, that's. You want them to be, that's my guy. That's going to be my. I want to go to some beat up old rundown wrestlers, you know, school, and I want them to be like, that guy is my ticket to the top again, you know? Take advantage of me. Please take advantage of me. Like, I don't know what I'm going to do. I wanted to do MMA. My first fight was supposed to be September 29th. Surprise.
I found out right on the show.
I'm supposed to fight. I have the choice. I can go 185. 170, 155, or 145. Currently, I'm sitting at 298.
298?
Oh, 198. 198. My bad. Currently, I'm sitting at 200. You know, 198, 200. I've recently been going back to the gym. I do MMA. I really do it every day. I do train every single day. But the gym, lifting weights and stuff like that, maybe 3 times a week, 4 times a week. So it's just hard with this new job. Like I said, we're opening the store, so that takes a lot of my time. That the store's not open. We open next Monday. After that, maybe my schedule will die down, and I can focus more on myself. But then, like right around the corner, I don't just train wrestling. I love wrestling. I coach wrestling. I start coaching again in September for I coach kids from kindergarten all the way through high school. Yeah. I wasn't the best, but that's something I have in me is training. I'm a good trainer. I'm a good coach. I'm a good teacher. And honestly, I'm content with that. If I were to like the rest of my life, just me working my 9 to 5 and going home to my family, my dogs, my house, and then just doing wrestling like three months out of the year, like coaching wrestling for kids, dude, I've changed kids' lives. I've there's no greater reward than that. No amount of money will take away a child telling me like, oh, I did it for you, coach, or I did the move you showed me. Did you see? And I won. I've never felt a prouder feeling in my life than when we told this kid Cruz, we're like, do the Marauder, and it's a move where you're behind the person and you trap their leg, you push their head down, and you kind of just like pin them. Mm-hmm. And that's a move I teach my high school kids, and they will not even learn it. They do not know it. This kid was a second grader wrestling like sixth graders, and he hit that move, like a move high schoolers cannot hit. First year wrestling. Proud, jumped out of my seat. The whole gym exploded. Everybody was like, and wrestling fans, they know what that move is, So for them to see that is beyond impressive. It's like you're an indie filmmaker and this is your debut film and it's your first year making films and you made like the Fast series or something. Like, dude, people would look at you like, wow, like just what's next, Who's next?
Oh, little Bill Goldberg in there. Well, yeah, I love hearing that, not to just, put you over, kid, but, I love you, and you are. I think you've gotten from choir, and you've gotten from the Army, and just life. How you stepped up in your life, and how you stepped up for friends and family, and different jobs. Is you are a born leader. That's who you are, and I have seen how the more and more you've taken on leadership roles, you flourish. You've become your best self, and whether it is MMA, whether it is you're in the main event of insert wrestling promotion that wants to sponsor the show. No.
MLW.
We prefer AEW. We'll take Ring of Honor too. We'll take Impact. TNA.
We'll take MLW.
We'll take
We'll take Major League Wrestling. We'll take Sweet Charlotte.
Yeah. Oh, I won't take that. I can't be bought by them. But no, I I'm so endlessly proud of you. Oh, we're going to do affirmations right now. Stand up. No. I love you, and I'm so happy you came and did this because, like I said, struggling storytellers doesn't just have to be someone writing a book. It doesn't just have to be someone going for the 10 pounds of gold. It doesn't have to just be someone being involved in film or something like that. Society is based around telling stories. That's what the cavemen were doing around the fires, going ooga booga. It's the foundation of everything. And so I'm really happy that you came on, and also that you're going to be the first ever person asked, not just questions, the questions. These are questions specific to you.
Oh, man.
Some might repeat for future guests, but these are questions I specifically formulated just for you. It was going to be 10, but I kept it to a smaller number. So the first one, and I'll move the mic back and forth like I am Tony Schiavone.
Is this a speed round?
You can take as much time or as little time as you want. Okay, so I'm going to hit you. Okay, here we go. You're wrestling Mount Rushmore.
Dude, I'm not prepared for this. So four people?
Yeah. You can give one honorable mention as well.
Oh, you're killing me. All right, I'm going to go with Shawn Michaels. Okay. I think Shawn Michaels.
HBK?
Yeah. Shawn Michaels is just one of those, wow. Like, it's so common now to see small guys in the wrestling industry, but back then, dude, everybody was giant. And Shawn, was no twig. He had muscle on him. Steroids, drugs was crazy back then. And Shawn Michaels was one of those that was always open about everything. He admitted he did steroids. He admitted he did drugs. He admitted to everything. But when you really look at his career from maybe the late 80s, early 80s to current day, he's been regarded as one of the greatest by his peers, by the industry, by everyone. But when people talk about Mount Rushmore, the greatest of all time, you hear Hulk Hogan, The Rock, Stone Cold, Mankind. You don't really hear Shawn Michaels. It's crazy to me because everybody knows who Shawn Michaels is. Yeah. The way people know who The Rock is, the way people know John Cena is, everybody knows the Heartbreak Kid. Yeah. Everybody knows I'm Just a Sexy Boy. Everybody knows Shawn Michaels. So he's one of my Mount Rushmores. I'm not going to put Stone Cold up there. One, because I think Stone Cold as a wrestler didn't cut it for me. He wasn't the greatest wrestler. He's a character, you know? He's a great character, amazing character. Yeah. But people will say the same exact thing about Hulk Hogan. He didn't wrestle. He was a character. He was this, he was that. But they'll put him on the Mount Rushmore because he's Hulk Hogan. But they'll exclude Stone Cold, you know? Same thing with The Undertaker. Undertaker's a character. But the difference between Undertaker and them, Undertaker was phenomenal wrestler. Yeah. He had a different style of wrestling. And I'll throw The Undertaker up there, too, just for character work, promo, commitment. Even when he was American Badass, when he wanted to become his true self, people loved him, you know? Yeah. So I'll throw Shawn Michaels and Undertaker up there. Dude, I sound like such a younger viewer, because I'm not like... I know Coco Beware. I know Hacksaw, Jim Duggan. I know The Rock. I know these guys, dude. Like, I was obsessed with these guys, dude. Pat Patterson, Lou, Captain Lou, like Bruno Sammartino. Like, I know these guys, dude, but they're just, for what I consider wrestling as an industry, these guys are the ones that do it. Shawn Michaels, The Undertaker. You know, maybe not right now, but one day Triple H will be up there. I will look back at Triple H's career.
Well, he is done. So.
Yeah, he's done, but man, dude, Shawn Michaels and The Undertaker, that's just a different breed. You have to have John Cena. I'm not a Cena guy, dude, but John Cena is the dude, dude. Like, come on, like, character, promo, in the ring, outside of the industry, John Cena's the guy, dude. And I think, man, dude, wow, wow. And the last person I'll throw on my Mount Rushmore, I got John Cena, Shawn Michaels, The Undertaker. Do you want to take a guess at who you think it would be?
I have one I really hope you're going to. I'm really surprised you haven't said someone.
It's Kurt Angle.
Oh, thank Lord.
Is Kurt Angle.
Oh.
And it's true. It's damn true. Oh, my God. I cannot say enough good things about Kurt Angle. You know, and I love to make the joke, and I always tell you this. Dude, if you would have been a wrestling fan from day one, when you were a fan, like when I was a fan as a kid growing up from age 1 and up, Kurt Angle would have been your guy. Dude, he's an all-American hero. He's an Olympian. He's a legit badass, can beat your ass, but he is funny. Yeah. He can be serious. He can cry. He can do it all. And people know who Kurt Angle is. If you say Kurt Angle, people know who he is. He's a common name. And I think in the wrestling industry, if people only know you in the wrestling industry, you didn't make it. Yeah. If you're not a cross-promotional, generational talent, you didn't make it. Like, everyone knows The Rock. Everybody knows Brock Lesnar. Everyone knows The Undertaker, Shawn Michaels, Stone Cold. If you don't know the people, you know the name. Yeah. And Kurt Angle's in that boat. Like, Kurt Angle sinks that boat. Kurt Angle is Kurt Angle. Yeah. Kurt Angle is amazing, dude. So, yeah, my Mount Rushmore on the record is Shawn Michaels, The Undertaker, John Cena, and Kurt Angle.
Very solid choices. If you're a listener and you aren't into wrestling, I think that is some of the best. And I would say Shawn Michaels, Undertaker, have two of the matches I regard as greatest of all time. If you ever wanted to get into wrestling, those are two good matches. And also, John Cena debuted against Kurt Angle. That's another good one. And that very true what you said. If I had gotten into wrestling at a younger age, I think Kurt Angle would have been my favorite, and I think right behind him would have been Batista. Those are the two that I think they would have been my guys. And probably Brock also. I love Brock now. Being a wrestling fan is being mad at Brock and then realizing you're only mad at him because you love him so much. Okay, we're only on question 2. You don't have to name the establishment, but what is the best thing you learned from your worst job?
The best thing I learned from my worst job. My worst job was the Army. I'll tell you right now. The Army sucks. Dude, the Army sucks. But one thing I did learn, if you're always doing the right thing, if you're always being a good person, obviously you're going to have your lazy days. You're going to have your slacking days. You're going to have your days where you can't. That job just taught me, like, if you're always doing the right thing, everything will come your way. Hate to make it religious, but man, I just told my friend Jose, he's a CO, he was under investigation for like mistreating an inmate or something, which he didn't, but they can say whatever they want. And he just got the news while I was on my way over here that he was not acquitted and he was found good and everything. And I've had a very similar situation that about already. Yeah. And all you can ever do is the right thing and do what you're supposed to do. And I'm a firm believer that if you do that and you live a good life, God will guide you. And I'm not in jail yet, so it's working.
I guess. I mean, that's a good way to look at it. I talk a lot about how the title of The Guy was originally born out of wanting to be the guy of Porterville, California, the one that puts this place on the map so that people aren't confused when I talk about Porterville. What is the biggest influence you think Porterville has had on you?
It's funny you say that because that was always my dream. I want to be a pro wrestler, and when they introduced me, from Porterville, California, and everyone's, where's Porterville? I always heard the guys, like the wrestlers, from Hollywood, from Los Angeles, why are they all from the same place? Yeah. And then growing up, I got older. You're not from Hollywood. You're from Ohio.
Hollywood, Florida.
You're from Ohio, Ms. Dolph. That was always my biggest dream, was I want to be the guy from Porterville that made it, that people know what Porterville is. And then only just because this city just did it for me, This is home, This is our city. This is our town. And and I like to think that being from Porterville is like a flex. Mm-hmm. Because I saw what Porterville was when we were kids to what it is now, where it's going. Like, we're flourishing compared to other parts of California. We get new places to eat every other week, every month. We get new stores. We're getting people move to Porterville from all over the world, and it creates, our little town, our little rinky-dink farm town in the middle of nowhere is home. And I've met people from all over the world, and I can honestly say Porterville raises good people. Good people come from Porterville. And I think that would probably just be my biggest thing, is like, Porterville's just good. It's just a good place. And that's what Porterville gave to me, so I want to try to give that back.
I agree. People that did know where Porterville was, I went to college with a few guys from Bakersfield, and you always get that, like, oh, sorry, sort of thing. And I think I feel that same way of, is this the greatest place on earth? Probably not. That probably doesn't even exist. But there's that kinship, and that, there is a work ethic here, and there are, like you said, there's just good people. And the reason why this town continues and it flourishes, and, for all of its faults, it's a good place with good people. Maybe it's not the place we want to spend forever in, but I hope to give back to it in some way, as do you. What's something you're glad you didn't do differently? Because you always hear people saying, oh, if I could have, I would have done this differently. What's something you're glad, whether it was, whether in the moment it felt great or whether in the moment it sucked, but in the long run, what is something that you're glad you didn't do differently?
I'm glad I didn't do my Army career differently the way that I did. I walked in with the mindset of, I don't want to make any friends. Everybody has a life back home. They're not gonna remember me. They're not gonna talk about me when they're gone, And I was like being in an institution of where everything revolves around rank, and the people above me are telling me, you don't do it. I've been in the Army 12 years. We've never done it like that. Like, it was very aggravating, very frustrating to be fresh out of high school, 18, and Roger Sergeant. That's all I could say. Once I started to get, I was in the Army maybe about 2 months, and I just decided to be myself. To just I'm gonna do things my way. I'm going to do things the right way. Because one thing you'll know when you join the military, or when you'll see it, everything is supposed to be by the book. But no one does anything by the book. Everything is done your way, and if it's not your way, it's the highway, you know? And I have took pride in reading the TMs, the technical manuals, the field manuals, the Army doctrine pamphlets. You know, I read all of them. I learned my regulations like the back of my hand, and I lived my career based off of the regulations. That's one thing I would never change. Like, I'm glad I did it the way that I did because, like I said, God guided me. He got me to where I am now, and now I'm living probably the best life I could possibly be living at this time.
What colors are we going to wear in our celebrity tag match?
Dude, it's got to be black and green.
Yeah.
It's not even a question.
Okay. Oh, Green Lantern?
Suck it. I'm kidding. Green is both of our favorite colors. I would most definitely wear green. Maybe green and gold. I feel like that's something you've never seen before. Green and silver?
Green
oh, yeah. A little Green Ranger action. Yeah, I'd be okay with that. Green and gold and white.
That'd be cool.
Green Ranger, White Ranger, mixed up.
Oh, Lord Dragon?
Oh, wow. Yeah, we could put a little dragon on the tights. Are you going to be I got a question. Are you a trunks guy or are you a tights guy?
Well, it depends. I get upset when wrestlers change from trunks to tights. But if you start with tights, well, that's not true because I like Dolphs equally. And then when you got someone like Seth who, yeah, he wore trunks, but he's more known for wearing tights. I don't know. It depends. I also don't want to have to shave my legs, so it's like if my legs aren't pumped up properly, they're gonna look like little twigs. I don't know. We probably go tights. I think we'd probably be tights.
Probably a tights guy.
Okay. So it's settled. Whenever we both make it in our fields and he's getting beat down and I'm at ringside and I hop the barricade, that's not a prediction. That's a spoiler. Okay. Last question. When it's all said and done, what do you want your legacy to be?
I've always said I just don't. When everything's done, when I pass away, when everything's done, life's over. My biggest thing, I don't need to leave a legacy behind. I just would hope no one ever had anything bad to say about me. Is my biggest thing. Is I try to treat people the way I would want to be treated. I'm a good person. I will start and be the first one to say I am an asshole. I am douche. Like I can be a mean person. I can be rude, but I tend to be that way to people already in my life that I love.
Yeah.
The more
I know it.
Yeah, the more I treat you like an ass, the bigger of an ass I am to you is because I love you. Because I'm comfortable to be that way with you. Because I'm comfortable to tell you the truth, to tell you things you don't want to hear. I want to see you do better. So I'm gonna tell you you're a loser. Like you're doing nothing. You're not you specifically, but
I have an idea.
but you know, people in my life, like I'm just that kind. I'm that friend.
Yeah.
And but just like you, like you've known me since kindergarten, you've heard me say the worst of the worst. Like so, I've always had that experience of in high school or in other mediums where people are like, "Oh man, Robert is an asshole. Robert, he's a piece of shit. He's a dick." Like, and I've always had those friends that are like, "He's not. He's the good person.
Yeah.
You just don't know him yet. You just haven't met him. You're not used to him. That's how he talks." You know, my friends always defend me. Always. My family. And some people get, you know, like shocked. Like, "Oh, he is?" Or, "Oh, I wouldn't have expected that," you know? And that's one thing I pride in is that I am a good person. And I know I'm a good person. And I try to live my life that way. And I just hope that when it's all said and done, there's just nothing but good things to say on my name.
Well, I'm happy to hear you say that. You know,
Also, I'm a 15-time world champ.
That's not a prediction. Spoiler.
Yeah.
Well, I'm really happy that you know. I think the reason why we're such good friends is because, unlike many other people, we know we are assholes and we own up to it. You know, there are people out there that don't, but we know that we are, and that's what makes us better than you. No, I'm joking, baby. But yes, I'm really happy with how this episode turned out. You are, like I said, there was no one else that made more sense to have on as the inaugural guest, especially as I'm still trying to figure out what the show is. What is this show? Well, it's a show about struggling storytellers. I finally simplified that so I don't have to be a mush mouth and accidentally say things out of order and go. But yeah, it's a podcast about struggling. We live in a day and age where social media, we're posting the best things. Like, here's me flexing and looking so great on this day. But we're not thinking enough about the struggles that go behind everything.
For struggling storytellers, you bring up people posting all the time. People post, and that's called a story, right? That's your story of the day. What are you doing today? What did you do last year? Yeah. But what are people really doing? Yeah. You know? And it's like, is that post worthy? You're not doing anything. If we go through my stories right now, it's drink, like, and that's kind of eye-opening. Like, do you ever just look at your memories and you're like, wow, I did that? Like, I was doing that? Like, ugh. Like,
I look at them and I'm like, yeah, why was that what I chose to put on that day? Or like, who was I trying to impress with this story? Who did I want to slide up on this story because it's how I presented myself? Or, you know, I've even started to, like, recently, just to keep my Instagram alive, I just like post at the end of the month, like a wrap-up. Mm-hmm. And I think about myself, I'm like, you know, I post the pictures that are the best, the most flattering, things I find funny or stuff like that. But, and then I think, and I look back at them, like when I start getting likes, I start thinking like, but what was happening in between like when I did July and June? Like July, I had no job. I was stressed the entire month. People were rejecting me. My bank account was dwindling, and just at the very end, I got a gig. And so that's what the show is all about. It's about, we all struggle to bring our art, and a lot of times our art and our lives are intertwined. They should be. They are. That's where it comes from. And I think that's what this show is trying to do as we continue on. And I will tell you now, I can tell you this is the best episode so far. We're the top, it goes number 3 right at the top.
Standard high.
This episode is exclusively for Andrew Bellish as he listens to this on his 2-hour car ride to work. But yes, thank you so much for joining me. I'm definitely going to have you on again. I think that would be fun to have you recur, as you know, since you recur in my life.
Well, tell the story of what is this guy doing? Yeah. What is this veteran doing?
Yeah, we could check up, you know, maybe I'll pick a number and we'll check up, you know, maybe we'll see like in a year where we're at.
I think it only makes sense to be followed up by Andrew.
Yeah, I do. Andrew's I went to lunch with Andrew a couple months ago, our good friend Andrew Bellish. And Andrew's so much of a fan, he put out people that could be on the show, which I really appreciated. I would very much like to have Andrew, because I want to split the difference between, you know, people that are related to the guy, like people that are, you know, that I know from my life that can give more context into me as a person, but also people that aren't in any sort of, you know, aren't in film.
You just want to hear their stories.
Yeah. It all, you can't have any of it without all of it. So gonna wrap up right there. Thank you so much for listening. You can find the show at Not Just A Guy Prod, Prod, on the socials that I actually care about, on YouTube, on all your podcatchers. On YouTube, please like, subscribe, leave a comment on what you thought about Lara's Mount Rushmore of wrestling. Also, last thing, I say Roberto, everybody else says Roberto. Some people say Rob, some people say Robert. I just randomly started calling him Lara in high school, mostly just because everybody else called him all 4 of those other names, or they called him 3. And last story to go out on, I remember being corrected by someone who was at times a rival. She corrected me on how I called him Roberto, and I was like, "You're a footnote in this story," but all respect. But yes, that's going to do it for this edition of Not Just A Guy. I have been your host, Not Just A Guy, the guy, Garrett Briones. I will talk to you next time. Yeah.